Good morning. Recognizing a quorum of commissioners, I call the May 8th, 2025 meeting of the Cannabis Control Commission to order. This meeting is being held remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 and is being recorded. Commissioners Camargo, Roy, and myself are participating in today's meeting. All votes taken today will be by roll call. We have a full agenda today that I will generally summarize. We will start with opening comments from commissioners and approval of one set of minutes. Then the executive director will present the executive director and commission staff report before we proceed to staff license recommendations. There are 3 changes of ownership recommendations, 38 license renewal recommendations, 2 provisional license recommendations, and 11 final license recommendations. There are 2 items in the commission discussion and vote section today: equitable relief request process overview and triannual review of executive session minutes. On that last topic, the commission may transition to executive session if needed to review any of the executive session meeting minutes. I will ask that commissioners wishing to comment or ask questions or request a break during any part of the meeting raise their hand to be recognized. I expect we will take a break at around 12:30. A lunch break at about 12:30. But other than that, I think we'll jump right into the agenda. Those initial comments, I'll turn things over to my colleagues. For any comments and or updates, commissioners will go in alphabetical order. I will go last. So we will start with Commissioner Camargo.
Good morning. Thank you. I will definitely be brief. I just want to always thank our team that does so much of the prep work and the behind the scenes to get us to our meetings. Looking forward to our social consumption policy discussion next week. And I know that there's some other dates on the calendar as well. So just looking forward to that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Roy?
Good morning to my fellow commissioners and everyone. I'll be very brief this morning as well. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Chairman Mike Rodrigues, Chairman Dan Donahue, Senator Peter Durant, Senator Pavel Payano, Representative Mike Soter, as well as staff from the governor's office who at various times over the past few weeks met with myself, Acting Chair Stebbins, Executive Director Ahern, and members from our team, including Director of Government Affairs and Policy Matt Giancola, CFAO Lisa Schlegel, Chief of Staff Andrew Carter, to not only discuss the Commission's budgetary requests and needs, but also to discuss cannabis policy and current industry challenges. We are very grateful for their time and partnership. I also want to recognize our Director of Government Affairs, Matt Giancola, and his team, Jessica Porter and Callie McDonald, for all their work to ensure that the 3rd State of the Cannabis Industry event was a successful one at the State House last week. I also want to acknowledge the tremendous and highly informative presentations made by many of our staff. And I want to thank Joint Committee on Cannabis Policy co-chairs Dan Donahue and Chair Gomez for helping us to kick off the event. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, I'd like to wish all the wonderful moms out there a very happy Mother's Day this weekend. Thank you so much for my time today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. I'll keep my comments pretty brief as well. Also want to thank our staff, our entire team that was part of the State of Cannabis forum last week. You know, just having the opportunity to sit in the room and hear the different presentations from so many different members of our team, it just reminds me how lucky I am to work with such a talented group. Thank my colleagues for their participation in the event and their presentations. And again, also express my thanks to Chairs Donahue and Gomez for hosting us. And the number of reps and senators who kind of filed, and their staffs who kind of filed in and out of the forum at various parts of the day. Obviously, we know there was a lot going on the House side, but we greatly appreciate their attendance and popping their head in to hear parts of the presentations. Also want to just express my thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Roy, for identifying a number of the folks that we had a chance to connect with over the past few weeks on Beacon Hill. I would also add on the day of the State of Cannabis, the ED and myself and Matt Giancola had a chance to pop into a couple of Senate offices. Actually appreciate time from Senator Moore to sit with us and talk, make introductions to our new ED, talk about some other topics. And also just this week, want to thank Commissioner Goldstein from the Department of Public Health for taking some time to visit with us. Also the Division of Banking, their team, as well as our friends at the ABCC, who had an extensive meeting yesterday with folks from our I&E team. Greatly appreciate all of the collaboration, but also just want to express my thanks, as Commissioner Roy did, to Matt Giancola, Jessica, and Callie from our Department of Governmental Affairs and Policy for the great work they did in organizing the State of Cannabis event. It was extremely successful, and just again, thank everybody for their participation. Okay, moving on. The next item is approval of sets of minutes. We have a set of meeting minutes from the March 27th, 2025 public meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve that set of minutes, which was included in the board book. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Camargo?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Roy?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. All right. Moving on to the next item is the Executive Director and Commission staff report, and I will turn it over to our Executive Director. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we can go to the next slide. I'm going to do some high-level updates. A lot of these we've discussed at previous meetings, and so they are just process updates so people know where a number of items sit as we move forward. So on the procurement side, this first section here is generally related to the OIG's letter and response from the Executive Director, and just updates generally on where we are with some of those recommendations. So I think all positive, you know, for people to understand where we are in that process. Again, we were in agreement with the majority of the OIG's recommendations within that letter. So the first one, as it relates to items 6, 7, and 8 in the recommendations from the OIG, includes engaging a third-party auditor. That procurement has already taken place, and the vendor is now under contract. That vendor is Clifton Larson Allen. That comes off of the state contract as well, and I have had past experience with, so very excited about that. Much of the work is intended to be completed by 6/30, which is important for where we are currently in our budget projections. So very excited about that. That work may take us into FY26 as well, but we're gonna have to let that play out. That's why we bring in the third-party auditor, and our staff will be ready to go to try to close that out. The second one is a separate audit recommendation within the OIG's letter related specifically to more of the organizational controls, which is referred to as a system and organization control, or SOC audit. And so not specifically in those words, but that is our interpretation of the OIG's recommendation. So we currently have a procurement out there right now. And this is specifically, I just want to temper expectations based on what we have for timeline and available funding at the moment. We will ideally be able to complete a SOC audit prior to June 30th, or at least do a significant amount of work, prep work for a SOC 2 audit. A SOC 2 audit right now would be difficult for what we're currently projecting for the FY26 budget, which I'll cover in a moment. But that procurement is posted as of this week and is due within May. So we should be able to sort of proceed with that, but it will be on the more limited side. Whereas we're hoping the accounts receivable audit that I mentioned up top, which is already underway, may be able to be completed by 6:30, although that is also, I can't guarantee because the auditors will do what they need to do and will work accordingly. The third item I want to mention for procurements that we'll be doing within this fiscal year before June 30th, and it is not a posted procurement because it follows a slightly different process, but it's receiving quotes, is related to testing consulting. The statement of work is out there in the request for quotes. And so within that, again, we would like to move relatively quickly, get a significant amount of value and work done prior to June 30th. However, that may also go over the fiscal year based on what we may engage that consultant for. So that scope of work may include the review of commission testing protocols and regulations, including recommendations that would come back to staff and commissioners. The consultant may advise on the development of a state-run standards lab, which obviously, again, we may not have the funding for in FY26, but we do have a number of conversations about looking into all of the possibilities that fall within that to build out that capacity. The third thing within that would be to provide third-party opinion, expertise, and recommendations for compliance programs. And the fourth is that a consultant should at some point be able to be used as an expert witness. So again, these are kind of three pretty significant procurements in terms of ensuring that we all feel comfortable with where we're going operationally, and also getting response and fruition on the recommendations that we agreed with from the OIG. The other two that I'll mention here, again, that come out of the OIG recommendation, but obviously were priorities of the organization well before that letter, is the either significant enhancement or replacement of two IT platforms, the Mass CIP, which is licensing, and the MMJOS, which is the medical portal. We are hoping to have both of those out to RFP in May and June. Again, the ability for us to procure that with our excellent procurement staff, which obviously has done a lot of the work that I just listed under the CFAO, Lisa Schlegel. Our ability to go out and procure is one thing. Our ability to actually pay for a significant enhancement or replacement of a system and the implementation thereof is going to be relying on funding. As of right now, if we can move to the next slide, we are not in position that I could tell you that at the end of that procurement, we'd be able to move forward. So just a quick update here on the budget process. The Senate Ways Means budget did come out yesterday, and that's been added here at 19.88 million. I will note that amendments are due tomorrow on the Senate Ways Means budget, and so that is not necessarily the end of the story, whereas the House budget has already gone through the amendment process. Conference committee will be the end of that process, and so what I would just end with in relation to the context that I just provided for our IT infrastructure procurements is that unlike some of the other things that we are reliant on our operating budget, IT infrastructure is a capital expense, and there are other ways in which we may be able to fund that. So while we are still continuing to push that 19.88 million does not meet the needs of the organization, and we'll continue to try to move the needle on that. At the same point, the IT infrastructure question from the previous slide does present us with some other opportunities that we'll continue to work with our partners that the commissioners mentioned at the beginning that we've been meeting with. There are other options the CFAO and others have gone through to see if we can find funding outside of the operating budget to help us project that we can move forward at the end of the procurement for the MMJOS and the Mass CIP systems. And you all know, so this is more for the audience, but the significance of those, right, operationally for us to work as efficiently as we can, the IT infrastructure, the tools that we provide to not just internally to our staff, to you as commissioners, but to external stakeholders, the legislature that relies on this data, patients, practitioners. These systems are so crucial to everything that we do that we have no choice but to continue to highlight how significant these improvements are. So more to come, I guess I would say on the budget. The actual final conference committee budget is not where we are now. That will be, after your next meeting. So we'll continue to discuss this, but there is a deadline tomorrow on amendments to the Senate Ways Means budget. Collaboration with state agencies. I think the commissioners did a great job summarizing sort of all of the work we've been doing. Division of Banking, ABCC, DPH. It's been phenomenal support that I've seen from our partners out there in state government, and I truly appreciate that. I will not entirely echo all of the thanks because I think the commissioners did a wonderful job. The staff was very impressive for my first state of the cannabis. I could not have asked for more. The slides, I'll just note, are up online and on social media, and that the video of the entire event will be put on YouTube with bookmarks for anybody who is looking to learn more about the actual operations of the organization and some of the challenges that we're facing. And again, I think staff did a phenomenal job of highlighting kind of the how immense the workload is and where our challenges currently are. And I think, we also hear that quite a bit from, when people want us to be moving quicker, when people want us to be making changes quicker, people need to understand. And I think that presentation, should people want to watch a video on any particular part of our processes, I think really highlights some of the challenges that we're currently facing with our funding. The legislative working group, I just highlight within this because, again, the Joint Committee on Cannabis Policy met yesterday. That's their second meeting. They also had their April meeting. They have quite a bit in front of them as well. And I think right now, what I believe the chair will look to do at a future meeting is have a discussion around timing, what the commission can do, what commissioners can put on their plates in terms of regulatory changes. And a lot of that needs to be timed with what's going to come out of the Joint Committee on Cannabis Policy, right? There's a number of items, some of which fall entirely on the legislative side, and some of which will probably be a significant amount of collaboration between the legislature and the commissioners in terms of tying statute and the regulations. And so, I mean, accounts receivable is a great example of that, right? A change might be necessary from the Joint Committee, and then the commissioners and staff will be looking at how that is going to work through regulatory updates. So a lot of work through the legislative working group. I think it's a great time to have got that established so that we are sort of prepared to work with the commissioners on what is going to be a lot of work in 2025, but some of which is currently outside of our control until we see the direction of the Joint Committee. And I just mentioned the Joint Committee, so I won't summarize that again, but I would mention that there may be room for recommendations for testimony, written testimony to the Joint Committee on Cannabis Policy. And I think that that's something that we may want to discuss at a future meeting. That does not need to happen immediately. The Joint Committee will be meeting in June as well. And so I think we have time to discuss whether or not that looks like a future agenda item. Go to the next slide. Just want to cover a couple other items that are, again, sort of relatively related to just updates for the commissioners and the public in general, based on previous discussions that have been had. So tier relegation was discussed at a previous commission meeting, I think just before I started. I just want to identify this. I think it's a positive example of why tier relegation, I think could be viewed as the commission may need to take action in certain instances. At the same point, I think these are two sort of self-identified tier relegation outcomes. So example A is an outdoor facility that was tier 6. They were approved through INE's review and my sign off to go to tier 2. That cuts their annual license fee from $12,500 to $1,250. Although there are many other components. That's not the only component of why somebody may want to be changing their tier structure. But again, self-identified from the business, worked with the INE team, licensing, and others came to me eventually when it was completed and ready to go. And so that is a tier regulation that was self-identified. Example B, indoor facility, tier 11 to tier 2. The annual license fee for an indoor going from tier 11 at $50,000 to tier 2 at $2,500. So I think, again, we will continue to have these discussions. I think it's an interesting note to have so people understand kind of where that sits after your previous discussion on it. I think it impacts and sits under a broad umbrella of some of the narrative that we see out there and some of the questions that we get about, you know, is there too much production? Is that impacting price? Those types of things. We are seeing some changes self-identified in the market, and they've worked through with our talented staff. And then just really high level on the 2025 goals, so people understand where we are. We did identify 5 of them that are relatively short term, which I consider to be within this fiscal year. The governance charter, should the acting chair feel comfortable putting that on the May 22nd agenda, I have been able to go through it, kind of coming in from an outsider perspective and taking a look at it and really just restructuring more than anything. I think there was a phenomenal amount of information in there to address some of the concerns that have been expressed in the past, and really I think just kind of streamline it but not lose the intent, was my approach to that. Again, it's not set in stone that will be on the May 22nd meeting, but theoretically it would time well for that discussion. And I have completed at least my initial review of that. You know, specific thanks to the staff who's also specifically helped me craft my thoughts into a document that I was able to provide for review. And so excited to have that discussion should that line up for the May 22nd meeting. The FY26 budget I just mentioned previously. The only thing, you know, I would mention as well with the OIG item and the response, right? The response was provided, which was part of the goal. But the next steps, the following through on those procurements for the audits, and then the actual audits themselves and reporting back to the OIG to close the loop on these items is kind of the next step on that. So I'd say again that the FY26 budget and the OIG's recommendations supporting our request for the IT infrastructure is where I think we need to be focused almost entirely right now, to really, you know, move the organization forward. The Cannabis Advisory Board under number 3 meets tomorrow, and we will look for a cadence there. I'm excited to get to know that group and work with them. And we also, I want to discuss with them a few, you know, opportunities to be more engaged with the CAB. So I'm excited about that. Chapter 180 implementation, I actually have a slide right after this. So I'll just mention that we will most likely, because of the 25 goal, have a more robust where are we with Chapter 180 update prior to June 30th. We did have one with, you know, itemizing the tasks and where we are with the tasks under Chapter 180 implementation at our April meeting. And then number 5 is a working group charter. And so I just wanted to highlight 2 working group charters that we're working on under the goals. One is for the medical program and the inclusion, which includes the vertical integration question, which I think is also something that the Joint Committee is taking up. So I think it's a perfect time. And so that is close to being signed off on as the charter itself. Another charter that I'm under review with the Chief of Research is for the CCRP, and that would be a steering group. And so those 2 charters are currently under review, should be completed shortly, which I'll share with the commissioners. And then goals 6 through 12, really, again, I think we highlighted almost point by point at our previous meeting on how many of those goals are going to be tied to what we can do for the FY26 budget. If we can go to the next slide, I'll highlight the Chapter 180 and then I'll be done and happy to take any questions. So this is the Chapter 180. This came out of a discussion in February prior to my arrival. I believe it was Commissioner Roy asked this question. Our Director of Digital and Creative, Emery Burt, worked hard on this to get this up and running. It is now live. And so the Chapter 180 landing page is available here, and we'll continue to push that so that everything is in one place. Those are the updates I have. I know I covered a lot of ground, but again, many of these topics, you know, we are continuing to discuss and we'll continue to track along the way. So happy to take any questions if I was too quick on anything.
Commissioner, excuse me, commissioners, any questions for the ED on this part of the report? Commissioner Roy, go ahead.
Thank you, Executive Director. First, I want to thank Director Burt and her team for the Chapter 180 landing page. So thank you so much. I think that's going to be an incredible resource and tool for folks. And I just have 3 questions. Executive Director Ahern, you had mentioned about tomorrow and amendments being filed. Do we have any folks filing amendments on our behalf? Or if there's any more information you could share on that?
I will be requesting that an amendment be filed. We do not have that already completed, so I can't tell you definitively at the moment.
Okay, thank you. My second question is around the SOC 1 and SOC 2 audits. Could you foresee the same auditing firm completing both SOC 1 and SOC 2, or will we have to do a separate procurement for the SOC 2?
From a procurement perspective, and I don't want to speak on behalf of CFAO's team, but my procurement experience would be, generally speaking, we may want to ensure that there's continuity, and yet based on pricing, a SOC 1 is going to be less expensive than a SOC 2, and so it probably looks like an open procurement on both, although certainly continuity would make sense, but it doesn't always work that way in a public procurement process.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, if I may, is when do we anticipate the testing consultant approximately to come on board?
The solicitation of quotes was the beginning of this week. Review of quotes, depending on response. I am hoping that by our May 22nd meeting, we'll have more of a robust, definitive update.
And if I may, their role, I know you mentioned it, I was trying to write notes really fast. Could you just share again what the prescribed role will be there for that person?
Sure. So again, I think this is one where in FY25, we're going to have to sort of prioritize based on timeline and available funding. FY26, is a different ballgame, but generally speaking, the scope of work we're requesting folks to be aware of that we would be interested in engaging with this consultant includes the review of the commission's testing protocol and regulations, and the ability to make recommendations for changes on the protocol side to the I&E team, on the regulation side to commissioners, the ability to advise on the development of a state-run standards lab. Again, we have a variety of options between where we are right now, which is currently engaging the existing ITLs, to having a full-blown lab that is under the state's control. And there's a number of items within between. So I think the advising of the agency on the development of where we go with that is part of what we look for from this consultant. Providing a third-party opinion, expertise, and recommendations for the compliance program, I think probably might be able to fit within the first item that I mentioned, but again, kind of operations, right? And then the last item would be if this is a consultant that we have on board and under contract, and there is questions of the need for an expert witness, that this would be a group that could be tapped to do that. Although that may not mean that they're the only consultant that would be able to do that for us. That would be a capacity we would potentially look for in this engagement. Again, the solicitation of quotes through the public procurement process does not mean that the contract we agree to will inhabit all of that. It might be that, before we come to an agreement with somebody, that some of those things might change, and then I would update the commissioners at that point.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Camargo, any questions? Okay. ED, the only thing is you were going through the presentation, and this is more of a comment than a question. Really like seeing the update with respect to progress and status of your work towards goals. Obviously, at the end of every calendar year, we have the opportunity to evaluate your performance, and being able to see those regular updates on a monthly basis in terms of your progress. That piece of the presentation, I think, is going to be really helpful for us as commissioners doing that evaluation of you at the end of the year. So thank you for including that.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let's continue. Licensing data updates. Invite Director Koval in. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so we'll jump right into it. Today we have 9 applications awaiting first review, 17 applications awaiting supplemental review, 2 applications for provisional license consideration, as well as 10 license for final license consideration. And you can see the number of certified active patients. Next slide. Here you can see compared to last year, the commenced ops are still up 13.2% in terms of commenced ops compared to last month. We've gone up by 7. So there are still, there's still upward movement in terms of commenced operations. Next slide. This again is kind of like a more in-depth explanation of the previous slides. And so we are up to 1870 total number of just movement through the licensing process as opposed to 1861 last month. And again, the bulk is always still, in the cultivator, retailer, and product manufacturer sections. Any questions?
Commissioner Roy, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Koval. My question is on the marijuana research facility. We all kind of applauded when it got to the final license phase. You anticipated a timeline? I know some of it's subject to the licensee having things in place, but when we would see that commence ops?
I do not have an anticipated timeline. As you said, there are other processes that they are going through. So those are contingent on many other factors like municipal level issues. So I unfortunately don't have a timeline for that at this moment.
Yep, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next slide. So here, Commissioner, you had asked that we include the active cultivator slide in this presentation, and we did have a disclaimer at the bottom per your request regarding the totals, that they do not reflect the current canopy in use, but it's rather that the maximum that could be in use. So to your point, just because they have, up to, let's say 100,000 square feet, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily using the full 100,000 square feet. And as we can see here, the commenced ops number, where the bulk of the tiers are in tier 1 to 3, 75%. If there are no questions, next slide. In this slide, you can see we have just the differentiation between marijuana cultivator indoor and outdoor facilities. So, as expected, there are many more indoor facilities as opposed to outdoor. And obviously, I'm thinking due to climate and various reasons being in Massachusetts. Next slide. Okay, here we are on our lovely HCA updates. We have gone up, so for the 957 number, we received another roughly 40 new HCAs. We received an additional roughly 20 model HCAs, and I say roughly because this data was pulled as of 4/24, so that might be a little different as of today. So it's nice to see that people are utilizing the model HCAs. So we have deemed an additional 12 model HCAs compliant. We have also received an additional 8 waivers, and overall we have deemed roughly another 40 HCAs compliant. In terms of non-compliant HCAs, we're kind of hovering a little lower compared to last month. We're at 187 as opposed to 198 last month. But again, that's not a true indication of, it's hard to actually track. It doesn't mean that the number's necessarily gone down. It's just how things fluctuate within the process. So, but right now, at the time the data was pulled, we were at 187 non-compliant HCAs. And in terms of town with at least 1 compliant HCA, we have added another 2. We were at 139 last month, and now we are at 141. So, it's nice to see that there's still progress. Next slide. So here I will highlight, the extension requests. I know Commissioner Roy, during the last public meeting, you wanted to identify the number of unique licensees. So the unique licensees that have been requesting the extensions are 348. The total extension requests received are 1648. So that averages out to about 4.5 to 5 extensions a license. So a lot of licensees are using these, and again, they're using them in different increments, whether it's because, they're hoping to get the HCA, within the next 30 days, within the next 60 days, whatnot. So you'll see licensees using multiple extension requests at a time. But in terms of the overall extension requests received, we have added another 122 compared to last month. So again, they are definitely being heavily utilized. Any questions? If not, I think that is a wrap for me. Oh.
Oh, go ahead.
Nice.
Commissioner Roy, saw you first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Chair, and thank you, Director Colville. I just have a request. If you could email this slide deck, I don't see it in our board book, and sometimes I go back to it. So someone could circulate your presentation.
Oh, what's on the screen right now?
All the
PowerPoint?
slides, all the slides you went over today. If we could send that to us, that'd be very helpful.
Sure. And I think Matt, I don't know if he's on here, but he has the entire PowerPoint. So yeah, if he could.
Okay, that's really helpful, because I do refer back to it sometimes during the month. So thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Camargo, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you. And when Olivia was saying she was done, I was like, bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you, Olivia.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you all. Thank you. Bye.
Very good. Thanks, Director. All right. We'll move on. I think Executive Director, is that everything for your Executive Director and Commission staff report? All right. We'll move on to staff recommendations on changes of ownership. And we are joined, I believe, by Jamie Wakefield. Where's Jamie? There she is.
Hi. Thank you for having me once again.
No, we're happy to have you. We have 3 staff recommendations on changes of ownership. We'll do these one at a time. Jamie, tell us about the first one, Cape Cod Grow Lab LLC.
Sure. The first licensee is Cape Cod Grow Lab LLC. They are seeking a change of ownership and control for 2 adult use licenses and are requesting to add 1 individual. Additional information is contained within the executive summary for the Commission's review and consideration. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend review and decision on this request, and if approved, do request your approval be subject to the conditions before you.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Any comments or questions on this change of ownership from my colleagues? Commissioner Roy, go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I just want to share that when reviewing this, I noticed the individual being added is Richard Roy, and for the record, there's no relation. So I just wanted to state that for the record, in case anybody was wondering.
Thank you for pointing that out. All right, very well, very good. All right, if there are no other questions or comments, I will seek a motion to approve the change of ownership for Cape Cod Grow Lab LLC. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Roy?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Camargo?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. All right, Jamie, the next one is Cresco HHH LLC. Go ahead.
Yes, the licensee here, as you said, is Cresco HHH LLC, doing business as Sunnyside. They are seeking a change of ownership and control for 2 adult use licenses and 1 medical marijuana treatment center license. They're requesting to add 2 entities. Additional information is contained within the executive summary for the commission's review and consideration. Therefore, commission staff do recommend review and decision on this request, and if approved, do request your approval be subject to the conditions before you.
Okay. Any questions on this one? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion or I'll seek a motion to approve the change of ownership for Cresco HHH LLC. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Camargo?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Roy?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. All right. We will move on to the next one. Cultivation LLC. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yes, the licensee here is Cultivation LLC, doing business as Sunnyside. They are seeking a change of ownership and control for 2 adult use licenses and are requesting to add 1 entity. Additional information is contained within the executive summary for the commission's review and consideration. Therefore, commission staff do recommend review and decision on this request, and if approved, do request your approval to be subject to the conditions before you.
Okay. Any questions on this change of ownership? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the change of ownership for Cultivation LLC. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Roy?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Camargo?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. All right, I think that does it for changes of ownership. We will now move down to our renewal roster.
Yes, there are 33 adult use renewals and 5 medical marijuana treatment center renewals for consideration today. Commission staff recommend review and decision on the renewal applications before you, and if approved, I request that the approval be subject to the licensee remaining in compliance with the commission regulations and applicable law.
Okay. All right. I have a couple of conditions on the renewals. But I think we can do a quick roster vote, and then happy to share the draft conditions on a couple of the renewals. So I would like to do a let's see, I'd like to do a motion to approve the license renewals 1 through 10, 13 through 27, and 29 through 38. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Camargo?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Roy?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further comments or questions on this slate of renewals? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. All right, going back to renewals on the slate, number 11 and 12. This is for Garden Remedies, both licenses, MRR license renewals, MRR 207197 and MRR 207195. My proposed condition is within 30 business days of approval of application for renewal, contact CCC Licensing Division and provide a response on current progress toward goals and diversity plan in alignment with goals identified in GRI Diversity Plan 2024 to 2025 is uploaded on February 5th, 2025, in accordance with 935 CMR 500.1034B. Just a quick explanation. They reported on progress on 2 goals, which I had a hard time identifying their connection to either their most a previously filed diversity plan and a new diversity plan that got filed. I'm just asking if they can explain the alignment between some of the goals that they reported on and how they are aligning with either previous or current diversity plans. So just a little confusion around that I'd love for them to be able to clarify for us. If there are no other questions, I would seek a motion to approve the renewal for Garden Remedies, Inc. MRR 207197 and MRR 27195, subject to the conditions proposed by Commissioner Stebbins. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Camargo?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Roy?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. The other draft condition I would like to propose is for number 28, which is Nudia Fenway LLC, MRR 207158. My proposed conditions are within 30 business days of approval of application for renewal. Contact CCC Licensing Division and provide a response to clarify goals and implementation identified in their diversity plan 2024 to 2025 is uploaded on 2/21/2025 in accordance with 935 CMR 500.1034B. Again, a similar explanation. Nudia is doing some great things in both their positive impact plan and their diversity plan, but again, some of the things they're reporting on their diversity plan don't seem to line up with the actual diversity plan, both a pre-existing diversity plan and what looks like maybe a new one. So if they can just offer some clarity to our licensing division about those results, it would be appreciated. Any questions on the condition? If not, I'll seek a motion to approve the renewal of Nudia Fenway LLC renewal license number MRR 207158, subject to the condition proposed by Commissioner Stebbins. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Roy?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Camargo?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. All right, we will move now on to staff recommendations on provisional licenses.
There are 2 provisional licenses for consideration today. The applicant here is Floor 13 Medicinals LLC. The proposed location is 0 and 403 Riverside Avenue in Medford. They are seeking a marijuana retailer license and the applicant received general review. Additional information is contained within the executive summary for the commission's review and consideration. Therefore, commission staff do recommend the issuance of a provisional license subject to the conditions before you.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this provisional license application? I did not see any proposed conditions, so if there are no comments or questions, I'll seek a motion to approve the provisional license for Floor 13 Medicinals LLC, provisional license number MRN 2850072. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Camargo?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Roy?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo,
Aye.
Commissioner Roy,
Aye.
and Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. All right, we'll move on to the second one, New England Regional Dispensary LLC. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yes, the applicant here is New England Regional Dispensary LLC. The proposed location is 401 Curran Highway in North Adams. They are seeking a marijuana retailer license and the applicant received general review. Additional information is contained within the executive summary for the commission's review and consideration. Therefore, commission staff do recommend the issuance of a provisional license subject to the conditions before you.
Okay, Commissioner Roy, I believe you have a condition you would like to propose for this licensing.
I do. Thank you, Acting Chair. For New England Regional Dispensary LLC, prior to final licensure in accordance with 935 CMR 500-140 6G, please include the phone number for the Massachusetts Substance Use Helpline on your consumer education. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that was the only condition on this provisional license. Okay, with that, I will seek a motion to approve the provisional license for New England Regional Dispensary LLC, MRN 285281, subject to the condition proposed by Commissioner Roy. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Roy?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Camargo?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo,
Aye.
Commissioner Roy,
Aye.
and Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. All right. We'll move down now to final licenses. Jamie?
There are 11 final license recommendations for the commission's consideration today. Commission staff recommend review and decision on the final licenses, and if approved, do request your approval be subject to the conditions before you.
Okay. All right. I did not receive any proposed conditions for any of the 11. It's nice to see some delivery couriers, delivery operators. I believe there was one micro business, number of product manufacturers and cultivators as well. If there are no comments or questions on any of these final licenses, I'll seek a motion to approve staff recommendations on final licenses. The slate 1 through 11 is included in the board book. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Camargo?
So moved.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Roy?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo,
Aye.
Commissioner Roy,
Aye.
and Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed, and congratulations to our 11 new licensees.
Congrats.
All right. Jamie, I think that's it.
That's it. I just want to real quickly say thank you to the I&E teams for the work they do to get us to these public meetings and the work that's done that's often behind the scenes. So thank you to everyone on the I&E teams.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it. Will we see you at our next meeting or you switching off?
I will be at the next meeting.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much for your work, and thanks again to all the team for their good work. All right. We will now move on to commission discussion and votes. We have 2 items under commission discussion and votes. The first is an overview on the equitable relief request process. And I invite our general counsel and enforcement counsel in to make a presentation. Kajal, I see you. Good morning, Tim.
Acting Chair.
Good morning.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Roy.
Could we have like a 4-minute break before we get into commission discussion? Thank you, Commissioner Camargo, for giving the thumbs up.
I
I'd be
should have
so
asked.
grateful.
I should have asked. Why don't we recess and come back at 11:02?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, I think everybody is back. We'll reconvene. And again, moving on, this is overview on the equitable relief request process. And again, inviting our general counsel and our enforcement counsel into the conversation and let them lead the presentation. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Acting Chair. Thank you. We, as you've noted, thought it would be a good time to do an overview of the equitable relief process. This is a timely discussion because we do expect that at the May 22nd meeting, that on the agenda will be a recommendation for equitable relief for your review. So this seemed to be a good time to just outline the process and answer any questions that may come out of this discussion. I'll start off by saying that this process is outlined in our regulations, notably 935 CMR 500.180 sub 3 C6, and its counterpart in the medical regs 935 CMR 501.180 C36 as well. And that, pursuant to that process, or pursuant to those regs, the staff has put together a very helpful form that I'll be going through here in a little bit. At the outset, let me also add that this is a collaboration between the legal department and enforcement counsel, and we, have set out a process where we will work very closely together on these requests. And so, just as I mentioned, the staff has put together a form which really lays out the requirements for requesting equitable relief. And it's a really handy way of just making sure that all the boxes are checked and everything is presented the way it needs to be. In terms of the way the division of responsibility is laid out, basically a request will come in, the legal department will review that request to make sure it's properly presented. And by that, I mean that all the various documents and all the information that is needed for completing a review of the request is properly included in the request. And then once the general counsel and the legal department have determined that the request is properly presented, it then goes over to the enforcement counsel and his team to do a due diligence review. So that's really the high level sort of collaboration here. Once that is done, once enforcement counsel completes that due diligence review, that team puts together a recommendation, and then that recommendation comes before the board for ultimate review and either approval, modification, or denial upon a vote of the board. So that again is the high level overview of the process here. Getting into it a little bit more specifically here, I do want to just note here that this process deals with a very particular and specific scenario, and that is situations where negotiations between a licensee or an applicant have completely broken down. So negotiations between the applicant and the host community, for whatever reason, have broken down, and the parties have decided that they, cannot come to an agreement, and so at that stage, there are several documents that are required for us to proceed with the process, and those documents have to be included with the equitable relief application. Those documents are either a discontinuation notice from the host community, again indicating that talks have broken down and the parties, cannot have, the host community has decided that it cannot go any further. Alternatively, the parties can also can submit a mutual abrogation agreement which again indicates that the talks have broken down and the parties can now reach an agreement. So those are the two prerequisites in terms of documents that have to be submitted for as part of an equitable relief application. Now, we in legal review to make sure that those documents are there, as well as we review the application itself to make sure that the information that's required in the application is included. And so more specifically there, we're looking at, and this is all laid out in that form. The form, by the way, can be found online at our site. If you do a search for equitable relief, the form does come right up. So it's easily accessible for people that are looking for it. But the form requires, beyond just contact information and just some basic information, the type of establishment we're talking about. It then asks for the type of equitable relief requested, as well as a detailed narrative regarding facts in support of the request. So those are the things that we are looking for in legal, making sure that that is all in the application. I do want to highlight also that there's a section here in the form outlining the specific type of equitable relief that is requested, and the options here are extension of a license expiration date with no fee, waiver of a change of location fee, institution of procedure for winding down the licensee's operations at the licensed premises, private mediation with the host community if that's agreeable with the host community, and then there's also a box here for other equitable relief. So that, again, one of those boxes has to be checked, and in the case of the other equitable relief box being checked, there is an area for the requester to fill in to describe exactly what they're looking for. Once legal has deemed the application properly presented, we then turn it over to our colleagues in the Enforcement Council's team to do the due diligence review. And I'll turn it over to Enforcement Counsel Gooden here to talk about that review.
Thank you, General Counsel. And so just picking up from where the GC left off, so once we receive the determination that the application is essentially ripe for review, my team will review that application, perform a general due diligence review on any factual assertions that are presented in that application. We'll also coordinate with other teams within investigations and enforcement, just because some of the equitable relief options that are available may also implicate other teams. So we always want to make sure that the other teams within the agency are aware of those too, in the event that we are recommending or we do present recommendations for consideration by the board. After my team performs a review, we will draft a memo articulating kind of a brief background of the factual information that's presented in the request, and then proposing certain recommendations for consideration. And really, I think those recommendations will take the form of the options that the board identified through the regulations, as well as just presenting that the commission may consider other equitable relief at its discretion. Once my team completes that review, the Chief of Investigations and Enforcement does play a role in the reviewing and advising on that as well as that being sent up to the Executive Director. Once the Executive Director receives that, he is able to review it, and then from that point it is submitted to the board for consideration at the next available public meeting. We've also built into our process an opportunity for EC staff, investigations enforcement, to meet with the general counsel's office as well, just recognizing the roles that the two departments play within the agency. Not to speak for the legal department and general counsel, but as the general counsel will generally advise the board on what their authority is related to this, that is more we will just have an opportunity for a touch point to make sure that we're coordinating any answers related to the underlying request are answered prior to the meeting. And if there are any questions related to the recommendations or any recommendations relative to the requested equitable relief. And then I'll turn it back over to Kajal if you have any final comments to wrap us up here.
Nope, that is entirely correct. There is a mechanism for EC and GC to confer after the recommendation has been made to talk about any kind of outstanding issues or anything like that. The request then goes, or the recommendation then goes before the board for consideration and vote. And during that process, to the extent that the board has any questions, the general counsel certainly is there to provide and answer questions, provide advice and answer questions. So that is the basic overview of the process. I do want to just, before turning it over for questions here, note that there are limitations to what the board can authorize. Equitable relief, and maybe I should have started off with this, is known as non-monetary relief. So this is under the concept of fairness and trying to ensure that the parties are treated fairly. As a board, as a commission, the commission has limited statutory powers, and so there are only certain things that the board can authorize, and then there's a point at which if parties are looking for relief that we cannot offer, that would then have to go to the court. So for example, if there are situations where parties are looking for enforcement of certain terms in an HCA, that would be beyond the scope of what the board could authorize, and that would have to be the parties would then have to consult counsel and seek remedy in a court. But it's hard. It's a little bit hard to kind of draw a line, without these are situations that are dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So it is a little bit difficult to draw a red line on these requests. But again, there are limitations as to what the board can authorize. And with that, unless EC has anything further, I'll turn it over for questions.
GC, were you planning to share a copy of what the form looks like? We might want to walk through that first before we get to any questions.
I don't know if I don't know if can I share a screen, or is that?
I just put it in the chat, the link to it for the meeting, if people want to pull it up. Otherwise, if the chair would like that, I think the presenters will just have to pull this down and pull it up. But I put the link in the chat.
Okay.
Which I found, as the GC mentioned, by going the search function and putting in equitable relief, came right up.
Glad it works.
Yeah, I wonder if it's better to just defer to let folks kind of look at the form and pull it up on their own, since it isn't part of the meeting packet here.
Okay. Commissioners, if you all have access to it, let's just take a minute or two to look through the form, and then we can take any questions for the GC or Enforcement Council.
Commissioner Stebbins?
Yeah, Commissioner Camargo, do you want to go first? Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Oh.
I just wanted to just obviously let you know I'm on the phone, so I can't see you all. I just wanted to let you know that because
Sure.
I'm like I'm reading, but I can't see you, so I just FYI. But I
Okay.
don't have a question just yet. I think for me, I would like to meet, once we're done with the meeting, to kind of go over a little bit more thoroughly. But I can wait for my questions.
Okay. Commissioner Roy, do you have any questions?
I do, thank you, Acting
ahead.
Chair. And my question's for either EC or GC, whoever wants to take it. And for folks listening, because I know there have been questions around this process, and I know it's on our website already, so it's there. If people search equitable relief, this document will pop up. But just for folks listening, the requirements are a discontinuation notice or a mutual abrogation agreement, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And so my other question relates to 500-186 CI. And that is, which states that the seeking equitable relief for an extension of the license renewal date without paying the prorated fees. So can you delineate between, for folks listening, the administrative extension that we granted where folks do have to pay the prorated fees to get the extension versus folks seeking equitable relief, which will also get an extension if we grant it, but without paying the prorated fees?
Sure, I mean, I can take a stab at that. I see the main difference here being that, if you do have those documents that you just referenced, Commissioner Roy, either a discontinuation notice or a mutual abrogation agreement, that makes the equitable relief process available to you. And then you can, request that equitable relief through the process in the form here. If in the case that you do not have either of those documents, then the administrative extension process is available to you in the alternative.
If I may follow up.
Of course, go ahead, Commissioner.
So if you have a mutual abrogation or a discontinuation notice, provide folks listening examples, then you'd say, well, the point is moot. Why do I need a license expiration date extension? But could it be a scenario where they're trying to procure a change of location? Like, could you share with folks examples of, it sounds like the point would be moot to ask for an extension on your expiration date if you're mutually going to abrogate or discontinue relations?
Yeah, I might defer to EC here on that one.
Sure, I can respond on that to an extent, Commissioner Roy. I think the circumstance that you're really describing there. So what we're discussing in this situation is when host community and a marijuana establishment, for one reason or another, just opt not to continue a relationship with each other. That doesn't have an effect on the actual license that's issued by the commission. The licensee may still want to hold that license, may still want to pursue their business in the cannabis industry. So where we're talking about extending the license expiration date, that would be an option that's available to them so that they can continue. A waiver of a change of location fee is also included as one of the options that the commission incorporated into regulations. So I think in that circumstance, a licensee is likely going to be seeking equitable relief under both of those options, where they would want to change location to another municipality that is a little more receptive to that business operating within their borders. And then they would also potentially need that extension when they're, I was not part of the specific conversation that resulted in these regulations. So I'm just kind of speculating in terms of the board's rationale with that, but I could definitely see a circumstance where a licensee is expending significant funds to find a new location, pay rent, leave their existing location, and all of that, considering that it's costly. I think the board's intent here, again, just speculating on that, but frankly, you all would have a better idea of that. But I think it's really a way to allow some flexibility for licensees that find themselves in the situation to essentially find a new location, a new area to continue their business if that is something that they are interested in. So I hope that answers your question.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, and thank you, and helpful for folks listening, because I have had inquiries around this process. I guess another example would be if the 600 days expire on the administrative extensions, and the board hasn't raised the ceiling on that, let's say, for lack of a better phrase, then this would be the next step, if you will, if the relationship, if the parties can no longer negotiate and they agree that they can no longer negotiate. I guess this is another mechanism for folks to explore. And I have just a question on other equitable relief that would, I guess, around process. My question is around process. At the meeting that it's going to be brought to us, is it going to be presented by the hearing officer? Like, who is presenting it? And my question is, of other means determined by the commission, will there be recommendations brought to us regarding other forms of equitable relief? Like general counsel said, some things are out of bounds or out of our statutorily given powers, like monetary relief, and certain enforcement and contractual agreement. So where that one is more subjective, will ask this a process question, will staff be making recommendations under that one?
In general counsel, I can speak to that as it goes to the ultimate recommendation, if you agree.
Yep.
All right. So Commissioner Roy, as it relates to that fourth option that's provided in our regulations, other equitable relief as determined by the commission, that is a discretionary authority that the board decided to, that the commission incorporated into regulations. From my perspective, unless there were specific requests that are presented by the requesting licensee here, I don't believe that the staff is going to kind of expand upon that. That is really an authority and a power that the board has given to itself to kind of consider the different circumstances that are present in each situation. So I would say the actual recommendation is going to be submitted for the board's review. I think either myself, a member of my team that did the review, could be available for questions if that would be of interest to the board during the meeting. However, also as we indicated earlier, general counsel's office is really there to advise the board on what your specific powers and authorities are. So as we're getting into questions in that area, I would definitely defer over to my friends in the legal department to answer any questions. So when you receive the board packet, and if there is a recommendation relative to equitable relief in there, if you have any questions about other options that might be available, I would definitely recommend, and not to volunteer my friends in the legal department, but I would definitely recommend consulting with them with regard to your specific powers and authority there. And I'll defer over to general counsel if there's anything to add as well.
No, thank you, counsel. I think that's well answered.
Commissioner Murray, go ahead.
Yeah, and thank you, E.C. Good, and I appreciate that explanation. And the reason I ask around for other equitable relief as determined by the commission is because, for instance, an outdoor grow, right? An outdoor farm, if you will, they can't pick up from the earth their outdoor grow and do a change of location into the next municipality or more favorable municipalities. So this is where we have to consider these extenuating circumstances. And I think that's where this really comes into play, where you know, we might have to think a little creatively, if you will, around equitable relief when we have circumstances where there just cannot be a change of location. Like literally, you cannot pick up your grow and move it over to a municipality. So that's why I flagged that one. And it sounds like and I was part of the working group, and that does give the board discretion. I just, and I appreciate that answer. And I just didn't know that if, like we receive staff recommendations on license renewals, we get recommendation. I didn't know if there would be like recommendations as well around number 4.
Any follow-up to that, GC or EC? Or was that kind of more of a statement, Commissioner? My apologies.
It was more of a statement,
Okay.
just saying that we might find unusual circumstances brought before us.
Yeah, and just to echo that, I think it's a little bit hard, as I mentioned earlier. Just these are evaluated on a case by case basis, and it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what might be required in a particular circumstance. So it is really hard to draw that red line between where the board's authority ends and where a court's authority would pick up. So we'll have to deal with that as these things come up.
Okay. Anything else? Commissioner Roy,
Commissioner
are you all
Stebbins?
set?
Oh.
Yep, hang on, Commissioner Roy, you
Yep.
all set?
Actually, I just have one last question. Can you share with us how many equitable relief applications we've received so far?
Well, we have one. I'll kick it off, and then EC can fill in. We have one that is ready, I think, for your consideration at the May 22nd meeting, and then I think there are a couple others that are either in the pipeline or just about completed. But I'll defer to EC on that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Commissioner Roy, I believe the total number, and just off the top of my head, so excuse me if I'm a little off on this, but I believe we've received 4 requests for equitable relief that followed the proper form, submitted the form, et cetera. 2 of those were determined to be ripe for review at this stage. So there is one that is ready for the board's review that will be coming up at the next public meeting. And there is another one that remains under review. I will also say too, just to caveat that this is a new process that was instituted by 180, so there was collaboration between the departments as well. So some of that process was being built out as well. So there was a total of 4, 2 of them were ripe for review, and then those 2 will be coming to the board for consideration at some point.
Thank you.
Commissioner Camargo, go ahead. Commissioner?
Thank you. Yep. Sorry, it takes a minute to unmute myself.
No worries.
I think Tim just answered my question, and then kind of just I would advocate for us to whatever we're supposed to be looking over for the 22nd, that I hope that we have enough time to review it and meet with our teams if need be before the 22nd. So just advocating to make sure we have stuff sooner rather than later.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I just have a couple of quick questions, and I think Commissioner Roy covered a few of them. Looking down to the part of the application talking about equitable relief request information. Remind me, because one of the options is would accept private mediation with the host community. Is there any expectation on our part, but that by the time we get this paperwork and the requirements of either the abrogation agreement or the note from the HCA from the host community that they no longer want to continue in negotiation? Checking that box, how do you foresee our role? Do we communicate that back to the host community? How do we take that into consideration? Because it would seem to be a little bit outside of our authority.
Sure. EC, do you want to take that one, or?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that a little bit. So acting chair, I think that's a good question. So how I've taken that so far, I will say that this hasn't been kind of a specific request from my recollection thus far, and perhaps this warrants some additional consideration as well, because this is not one of the four specific options that are articulated in our regulations. How I'm viewing this is more, as you're indicating, informational purposes. So if we're thinking about kind of in a court context or a hearing context, oftentimes when there is a dispute that is before a judge, before a hearing officer, an arbitrator, et cetera, they will ask if there has been any efforts to resolve the matter short of an actual lawsuit. So here, I think this is good information for us to consider whether they would accept private mediation, because that is an indication that perhaps the entities have some additional conversation that could be productive here. I also think this may go into that fourth option about other equitable relief as identified by the commission. I defer over to general counsel to speak more on this, or to kind of adjust anything that I'm alluding to here, but I think that could be something else that the board considers as part of the recommendation. I should note as well, we will be providing you with the actual request from the licensee so that you're able to see the full context of that request, and not just getting that filtered through that staff recommendation. So I think that's something else that the board could consider when actually acting on that request for equitable relief, in terms of, is this matter something that the board actually wants to issue a determination on, or does the board feel that perhaps there's some additional conversation that should happen, or perhaps the licensee and the host community should consider mediation as part as a means to resolving that impasse that they find themselves in at the time of it. So I definitely think it's a good question, may warrant further consideration and maybe an amendment to that form. But at this point in time, that's how I'm considering that option.
Okay, I appreciate that. GC, any other comments you want to make on that question?
No, it's a good point. I'll just note that that would have to be a voluntary situation. We certainly can't force parties to mediate, so both parties would have to agree to do that. Yeah, so but I agree with what EC was just saying. Okay.
Again, and what I would also encourage is between now and when we review the first application, because you've made several references to the fact that each application will be a little bit different for every licensee. You take the opportunity to, either do some 2x2 debriefs with commissioners, as soon as the application, that particular application you want us to act on, can be reviewed. But, for me, if somebody is saying, I'd accept private mediation, would you envision that kind of puts a hold or a stop on our consideration of the equitable relief request process until that would get vetted? Or is it merely we're interested for a later stage, potentially in any legal process?
Again, I think a good question. I think that will be a case-by-case scenario, and the parties will have to determine, where mediation may fall in the process. If the requester wants to have us, continue to process the request while a mediation is sought, that's certainly an option. But I think this, as you indicated, is something that would have to be worked out in the case at hand.
Okay. Appreciate that. I had a couple other questions, but I think I'm good for right now. Commissioner Roy, do you have your hand up?
I do. And my question to either EC or GC, and we've kind of had this conversation behind the scenes, the difference between a public meeting and a hearing, and within the statute, sometimes where, it says both. And so my question is around 500-188. Any action subsequently taken to deny an ME's renewal application due to failure to produce a compliant HCA or compliant HCA waiver shall afford the ME a right to a hearing pursuant to 935 CMR 500-500. If the ME elects a hearing pursuant to 500-500, the administrative proceeding must be conducted pursuant to 801 CMR 1.01 formal rules. So they don't have a compliant HCA. They have started this process. Is this a hearing, or is this part of a meeting? And if so, please explain. And if it is a hearing, then we must comport ourselves within the rules of 801 CMR 1.01 formal rules.
Yeah, let me take that one. These are two separate processes. So, a request for equitable relief is made, it is reviewed. We'll assume that it doesn't resolve the issue and the license is denied. That then opens up a right for that licensee to request a hearing or applicant. So that would be a separate process that would kind of emanate separately from the results of the equitable relief process. So just to come back to what you may see on the 22nd, this would be the conclusion of the equitable relief process, and so would not be part of a hearing officer's consideration or subject to any rules involving the hearing officer. These, again, are two separate processes. Depending on how the petition for equitable relief is resolved, or if it is resolved, that may down the road lead to a separate filing before the hearing officer, which would then kick off and be subject to those rules.
Commissioner, Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, General Counsel. So, and again, for folks listening at home, if on May 22nd, the board declines equitable relief, then this is another mechanism. Then they can request a hearing in front of the board.
Yeah, just to clarify, they can request a hearing, and the rules involving the hearing officer and the hearing process will then kick in.
Great, thank you.
Good questions, Commissioner. Thank you. I don't think I have anything else at this time. Again, thank both GC and EC for talking us through this. We'll see this possibly on the 22nd. And again, just suggest you find time you might want to walk through the pending application with commissioners prior to that meeting, as this is our first time going through this. But greatly appreciate your time and the presentation this morning.
Thank you all.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Commissioner. We will move on. The next item under commission discussion and votes is our tri-annual review of executive session minutes, and I believe the GC is still with us on this.
That is correct. Thank you, and still good morning. Wanted to run through our triennial review of executive session minutes. As you're aware, periodically and pursuant to AG guidance here, we undertake a review of our executive session minutes about 3 times a year, hence the triennial review process, to determine whether the purpose for executive sessions is still active or has terminated. In the case where we determine that the purpose has ended, we would then recommend that any of those minutes be voted on and released. So we have undertaken that review here, and I do have a recommendation for you that I wanted to run through. And there is a memo that outlines this review in your packets. There are two sets of minutes that are covered by a protective order, which we deem to still be under that protective order, and so those minutes are not ready for release at this point. There are 12 sets of minutes that pertain to collective bargaining and litigation that we have determined that the purpose for those meetings and those minutes has not concluded, and that disclosure of those minutes would have a detrimental impact on the Commission's litigation position. There are 2 sets of minutes pertaining to strategy sessions held in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, which again, we have determined that the purpose of those minutes has not yet concluded, and that disclosure of those minutes would have a detrimental impact on the Commission's negotiation position. There is 1 set of minutes pertaining to a complaint against the Commission. Legal has determined that the purpose of that set of minutes has also not yet concluded, and that disclosure would have a detrimental effect on the Commission. And then finally, there is 1 set of minutes pertaining to the review of executive session minutes that we have reviewed, and we recommend that set of minutes is ready for release because the purpose for those minutes has concluded. So just to sum up, there is 1 set of minutes, and that's the meeting for the March 13th, 2025 executive session that we have determined to be ready for release because the purpose for that executive session has ended. Should the board agree with the recommendation, I have put in some recommended motion language that would direct the general counsel to continue to withhold the 17 sets of executive session minutes that I just went through, and to direct the GC to prepare the minutes of that 1 meeting for March 13th of 2025 for review and approval by the board. And if there are any questions.
Any questions? Obviously, we have the ability to adjourn into executive session if there are particular details about meeting minutes that we wish to discuss. So we have that option available to us. Commissioner Roy, go ahead.
Yes, I request we adjourn and we go into executive session, please.
Okay. All right. Pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22FG, to review executive session minutes, I would seek a motion to enter into executive session. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Camargo?
So moved, and also I need a phone number to call in as well.
Okay. Commissioner Roy?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Let the record show the motion was made by Commissioner Camargo, seconded by Commissioner Roy. Hearing none on the motion that has been seconded, I'll take a roll call vote. I would ask that when you make your vote, you confirm that you are alone and nobody can hear your deliberations. Commissioner Camargo?
I am alone and no one could hear my deliberations.
Okay, Commissioner Roy?
I'm alone and no one can hear my deliberations.
Okay, and Commissioner Stebbins votes aye, and I also confirm I am alone and no one here can hear my deliberations. Let the record show that the motion was approved unanimously. We will now enter into executive session. For the record, the individuals participating in the executive session will be the 3 commissioners, our executive director, our general counsel, our deputy general counsel, and our paralegal, Avania Corrales-Solis. And as a reminder, the commission will reconvene in open session so we can conclude the rest of the topics on our agenda. All right, with that said, we will step out of this and reconvene in executive session.
Hi, this is Nuris.
We got you back.
Thank you, Travis. Like I'm at the edge of my seat. I'm like, can they hear me?
It is a little disconcerting to not be able to see folks. Stuff. Just gonna run to the men's room really quickly. I will sprint.
No worries. Turn your camera off and we'll wait for you. Thanks.
Hello? Commissioner Stebbins?
Yeah, we're here, Commissioner. Hang on. We're just
Okay.
waiting for everybody to
Okay.
rejoin us.
Yep, no worries. Is this, I was on and it kicked me off and then I came back on, and I didn't hear anybody. Thank you.
All right, ED is back with us. Commissioner Camargo is with us. Commissioner Roy is still with us. Okay. Reconvening from executive session. We're now down onto the next quick items, new business not anticipated at the time of posting. I do not have anything that was not anticipated prior since the posting of this public meeting. Our next meeting dates, we can throw those up there. Next one is obviously May 12th. We're back in person. We will hopefully be getting through the rest of the initial red line read of the social consumption framework. Hopefully be able to finish that up on Monday. We are meeting on May 22nd, another meeting in the month of May. I know one of the agenda items will be, we heard about obviously the equitable possible applications for equitable relief, review of the governance charter, which all of you now have the latest version. And also, I believe the new guidance on positive impact plans might be in front of us, but we'll confirm that agenda as we get closer. I'd also just like to flag for my colleagues, I would love to look at our meeting schedule, bring back the conversation with respect to agent registration and clearing up some of the agent registration regulatory requirements. I do have one item of business. I'm sorry. Thank you, GC. I just need to finish up on some of the commission discussion and vote business. I do need to seek a motion to approve the general counsel's recommendations to continue withholding 17 sets of executive session minutes and direct the general counsel to prepare the minutes for the March 13th, 2025 executive session for review and approval subject to appropriate redaction. Do I have such a motion, Commissioner Camargo?
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second, Commissioner Roy?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye, 3 in favor, none opposed. Okay, so as I was saying, if we can go back to the screen for next meeting dates. Again, I would like to think about the possibility of bringing back for discussion what I think are some of the needed changes that we've all heard about with respect to agent registration. But I will look for opportunities on our current meeting schedule to include that. And you see the rest of the meetings throughout the year, obviously we'll be adding some sessions in to go through the revisions that we've made to the social consumption regulatory framework, and we'll start to look at people's calendars for that. If there are no other questions for today's meeting, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Roy. Do I have a second, Commissioner Camargo?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Commissioner Camargo.
Aye.
Commissioner Roy.
Aye.
And Commissioner Stebbins votes aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the good work. Have a good rest of the day, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. Appreciate it.